with this, I am going to also tell the story, like everybody else. But this isn't my story. This is from Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, which was written a long time ago about the colonization, of course, by Americans of a new frontier that led to the almost complete decimation of its indigenous population. Right. So this was, in this case, it's the Martians, and the stories shift to the settlers, and there's a couple parents, and their long dead child suddenly shows up at their door in Mars. And they're thrilled. They can't understand it. The father in this situation is a little suspicious, but it does so much good for them to have this dead child back and living with them, just as it always was, that they go with it. And the one rule is the child says, "You can never take me to town," which they break, of course, because this is a story, and they're Americans, right? So we don't do what we're supposed to do. So they take the child to town, and the child disappears. And suddenly, a new family has had their long-dead child appear. And this is, in fact, the last Martian on the planet, and it becomes whatever we crave. Okay. I'm going to sit with that for a second. My thing I was thinking about, I knew that there'd be lots of really great content about what we need to be doing in positive psychology. And part of it is, so in every talk, it was, we need positive psychology to do more of this or more of that. And I'm still, I have to say, I'm not even sure what positive psychology is. So I wanted to sort of think about that question. And where is the most there in positive psychology? So this is the first one, right? We believe that a psychology of positive human functioning will arise that achieves a scientific understanding and effective interventions to build thriving in individuals, families, and communities. So that's from the American Psychologist paper. This is from Penn, so it must be true, right? Positive psychology is the scientific study of the strengths and virtues that enable individuals and communities to thrive. This is from the Authentic Happiness website. Positive psychology is a new branch of psychology which focuses on the empirical study of such things as positive emotions, strength-based character, and healthy institutions. And the Canadian Broadcasting Company says positive psychology puts it this way: where traditional psychology is focused on diagnosing and treating various types of mental illness like depression, positive psychology focuses on the positive side of life, on making people are happy most of the time, even happier. Ooh, right? And then TED. I think every talk should have a TED in it. It's this great website. They show amazing talks by amazing, brilliant thinkers. Teaching, education, design, I think, is what TED stands for. Positive psychology, this is the blurb for Seligman's talk. A field of study that examines healthy states such as happiness, strength of character, and optimism. And I thought this was sort of interesting then. So this is why I wanted to have this as the last quote. As it, whatever it is, in a sense, moves beyond a focus on disease, what can modern psychology help us to become? And so in a sense, are we really talking about modern psychology when we're trying to understand what positive psychology can, should, must, will do? Or are we talking about positive psychology, and it's positive psychology, the Martian child, the last Martian that's everything that we want it to be? So this is good. This is quick, but we've got some slides, right? So these are the sections of the Canadian Psychological Association. You're required to memorize them. But I went through and I thought about this. Okay, this is a lot of sections. Wait till you see the APA section list. And said, okay, so which of these divisions am I confident that there has been research that one would call positive psychology, according to all the definitions, or any of the definitions, or just kind of what we're talking about right now? Because I'm so technologically savvy, I changed the shape of the bullets to make it look like I checkmark things. The ones that are checked are divisions I'm fairly confident you can find positive psychology research in the field of. And the ones in orange, I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm just not sure. So the ones in orange, community psychology, I think so, but I didn't want to say it. Criminal justice, I know grad students who are interested in this, positive psychology in prison systems. I'm not sure if I've seen that published yet. Psychoanalytic and psychodynamic, we just heard actually that there are people who are curious about that, so that's going to change. Psychopharmacology, kind of maybe, depending on where you put that basket, and how you feel about beta blockers removing traumatic anxiety memories. And rural and northern psychology, just because I didn't want to I'm sure it is, but I don't really exactly get that one. And women in psychology, again, I'm just not confident. But probably some of you are thinking, well, actually, let's put check marks by those too. Okay, so here's APA. There's 56 sections, which is interesting in and of itself, right? I was kind of thinking, like, I wish I was younger, but sometimes I wish I was older so I could have a perspective of how some of these divisions have blossomed or faltered or what's happening with them. Is this something that has happened 10 times before, like we keep reinventing the same thing? So, and I just went for color coding so you get sort of like a visual impact. And I'm pretty sure that like almost 50 or 45 of these sections have research that positive psychology would recognize and positive psychologists would recognize. So when we ask the question, what does positive psychology need to do to X, Y, and Z? How can we bridge the gap between practice? How can we get more dynamic, complex models? How can we better understand how to use what we have, our capacities? Right? I mean, I think you make the connection. There's a lot of information. This is another thing that comes up in the listserv. Someone says, well, how can I do blah, 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 blah? How do we know if anything works? Well, you know, I don't know which division is right now. 12, of course. Division of Society of Clinical Psychology shows a lot of things that make people feel better. Decades of research. So that's one way we can sort of look at this. Is positive psychology, what we're talking about, really modern psychology? Completing a circle, not like finding a complete opposite side of a coin, but just completing a circle of what has been an endeavor. Part of me wants to say that if Ed Diener had stayed on as the editor of JPSB, we wouldn't have needed positive psychology, because look at the research that was published there when he was the editor. That is where all of the research that launched positive psychology really was coming out anyway. So part of me does wonder then, do we need positive psychology? It's almost like I knew I was going to say that. So is it a something? Is there a there? And I think it depends on your perspective. Is positive psychology scientifically useful? No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Right? These are questions to think about. Is positive psychology giving us scientific leverage? I mean, it's given us some journals, and that makes it easier to publish work that is neither impactful or productive, or nor interesting, like I do. But right? So it does make it easier to get it out there, and it actually gives probably practitioners a place to start weaving through what is otherwise, right, a lot of journals to read. So I think that, in that sense, it's good. Is it practically useful for people? You know, it seems to be, right? I mean, it's certainly getting in the hands of people and possibly changing lives. I mean, at least, I mean, part of me thinks we've had psychology, we've had therapy for a really long time, and the world still sucks. So is this really going to fix it all up right at the last minute? Is it politically useful? Are we getting involved in things that otherwise wouldn't be invited into? Business domains. Engineers want to know how to be happier in their meetings, which sounds pretty crazy, but I think it's good. Is it commercially useful? And here I think this is the big ticket. It is clearly commercially useful. It has been a commercially useful innovation, kind of like in the financial sector. They can move more product if there's a different sort of way of slicing it. So I've got nothing wrong with that, but these are questions that I've started to think about. What is it? Do we need it? Is it useful? And I'm not here to answer anything. I'm just thinking these are questions that I think people will be juggling to some degree. And part of this goes to, why is positive psychology racing so far ahead in the public marketplace? And why are, stodgy, somewhat unfun researchers saying, slow down, you need more time to research stuff, Almost like we are supposed to be able to dictate what people do with knowledge, which is sort of silly too. So these are some questions I had. I would love it if there are answers out there, but I think that we'll be considering these sort of things as we go along. And I wanted to go very, very quickly through my little piece. Give more time to Ken. Oh wait, yeah. And a cartoon. Are you experiencing anxiety, depression, acute muscle pain, indigestion, angst, malaise? Ask your doctor about leeches. They cure anything, right? So I think that's the risk. We can't have positive psychology promise the world and say it's the one-stop shopping place for the good life, which we can't even identify or define or agree on. Okay, so leeches.
Hi, my name's Ken Hart. I'm a psychology professor at the University of Windsor, and I'm technologically challenged, hopelessly looking for my presentation. Is anybody here not technologically challenged? At once it was on the tabletop.
What's the name of it?
It's not up here.
Okay.
It used to be here, and it's gone missing.
Well, let's just see.
It could be in here.
It could be on the computer. Is it on a disk?
It used to be on the tabletop. Here.
Okay, that's not it? Okay. Do you have it on a thumb drive?
It's right here.
Okay.
Yes, it did. I had it on the tabletop ready to go. I said I didn't want to have a problem. And I tried everything I could in terms of planful problem solving
Go on and
to
get started.
avoid having this happen.
What's the name
But
of it?
I'll be talking about the future of positive psychology. And for my presentation, I took stock of the past.
Is that it?
That's the future, yeah.
Let's look at the future.
Okay? Just go to the first one. I don't want to give away the punchline.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask a question. Will resilience research take over positive psychology in the future? I doubt it, but there's some data that you could interpret in this direction. So I'm going to talk about the future of positive psychology, and for my presentation, I took stock of the past of positive psychology. So I'm going to present some trends, some empirical trends. I'll offer some opinions on what these trends might mean for the future and whether we can extrapolate what has happened in the past in terms of historical empirical trends, in terms of publication rates within subdomains, and how far can we extrapolate these into the future. So I'm going to start off with a strengths building exercise, and I'm going to ask you to play to your strengths. We talk about capitalizing on talents. And we're all very talented in the area of reading, aren't we? So would you please try to strengthen your skills? I'm not going to read that. I'm going to ask you to read that. If you're a speed reader and you're done, start daydreaming and looking around so I know that you're done. Doesn't it feel good to capitalize on your talents? The Gallup organization will be very proud. All right, we're going to dissect this, but this is just to orient you and sensitize you to some of the data. Okay, here's some data. There's 8 figures. By the way, the panel, I'm going to ask each of you to comment on one or more of these figures. I have 8 figures. This is a line graph. I have 7 more. So when I'm done in like 5 or 10 minutes, we'll go around. Todd, we'll start off with you. We'll go around the table and you can try to see, just make a comment on what you think the implications for the future of positive psychology are. So here we have figure 1, number of publications in PsycInfo for each of 5 subdomains of positive psychology scholarship, starting in the year 1990. So this is a 19 or a 20-year retrospective. We use some inclusion and exclusion factors for resilience. These are keyword searches. So anything that showed up, if resilience showed up in the keyword or in the abstract, it was counted. So as you can see, resilience was actually ranked second from the bottom 20 years ago. Now, 2008, 2009, we've got about 1,600 publications in that year alone. Happiness ranks second, life satisfaction third, character strengths and virtues ranks third, and meaning and purpose ranks fourth. But the absolute value for meaning and purpose is quite high here. You've got still 700 publications in 1 year, 2008, 2009. So what's going to happen in the next 10 years? Is this line going to continue to accelerate up 5 years, 10 years? Or are these lines going to catch up? So just remember this 1,600 here. We're going to come back to that in a second. You notice that some of these lines, all of a sudden, there's an inflection point right here. What year is that? 02, 03. Something was happening in 02, 03 where character, strengths, and virtues started to take off. You see, this is not a linear. There's a inflection point right there. Is that a Seligman bandwagon effect? Right. Is that a delayed reaction to 1998 APA speech? Is that a delayed reaction to the American Psychologist 2000 publication? Yeah, I'll leave that to you. How about this one? Resilience. Look where that, we got one line right here, and then we got another line right here. So this inflection point right there. That's 01, 2000 and 2001. Seems a little premature. Maybe some people really got enthused with Marty's 1998 presidential address on positive psychology, but that's still a little bit too premature right there, 2000, 2001. I mean, by the time it gets through peer review and all the revisions, it's going to take a couple years. So I don't know what happened here at that inflection point. Let's move on to figure 2. Okay, so we have number of publications, psych info, for each of 3 subdomains of positive psychology scholarship. Look, there's nothing happening in the 90s, in the early. Everything happened beginning in the year 2000, 2002. So what was going on to cause these lines not to continue going straight? Something going on. Is that a Marty Seligman bandwagon effect? Or were there contemporaneous things going on? Were there funding agencies and foundations who made that a priority and started funding scholars? And that Marty Seligman was one of them. I'm going to ask the panel later on to comment on these plateaus here. These are 4-year plateaus. We first did this in February of this year. We thought maybe the University of Windsor's CD-ROM for Psych Info was faulty, and it wasn't just picking up all of the journals. So we went back 2 weeks ago, and we did it again. So there was a 6-month lag between the first time we searched Psych Info at the University of Windsor Library and the second time we searched Psych Info at the University of Windsor Library. And there was only like 6 or 7 more publications per category, but we got the same plateau effect. Are these going to continue to plateau out? Are we not going to see an acceleration in the future in the area of flourishing? Or is this just a blip, a random blip? I showed this to Ev Worthington. He said, that's just a random blip. He said, I've done stuff exactly like what you're doing in the area of forgiveness research. And he has found these really weird blips where there's just nothing going on, and then there's a huge acceleration 5 years later, and then it just a random fluctuation. But look why it's just specific to flourishing, the good life, and the life worth living. But if you go back, you see no plateau here for resilience, no plateau for happiness, no plateau for life satisfaction, not really. And there is one here for character and strengths and virtues, and there's a little bit of a plateau here for meaning and purpose. How to interpret that? I really don't know, and that's why I want to hear from the panel. One suggestion that I thought was maybe there's a saturation effect. Maybe the number of scholars out there and the number of practitioners out there who are potentially interested in positive psychology are already aware of it, and there are no more new takers that we can sign up to the positive psychology bandwagon. The bandwagon is full. There's no more room. I don't know if that's what it is. I hope that's not what it is. So this is puzzling to me, and I'd like to hear from the panel, and then maybe we could stimulate some conversation in the room. But here we got empirical data and opinions to follow. Now, if we take, this is figure 1. These are the data here. And this is figure 2. This is tier 2. This is tier 1. I call this tier 1 because, look, you've got 1,600 publications here, and the base rate is very high here. Look at 400 to 1,600. That's tier 1 research. This is tier 2 research. Look, there's only 120 for the max flourishing. And that's a lot lower than 1,600, right, for resilience. So that's tier 2. So if you put them in perspective and you add up all of just the year 2008, 2009, and you take all the tier 1 research, right, resilience, happiness, life satisfaction, 5,016. And you take all of the publications for the 3 subdomains of tier 2, right, flourishing, right, life worth living, it's only 201. So that gives you a relative proportion of what's happening in these subdomains of positive psychology. And this is the domain that seems to have plateaued out. It's not that resilient. Okay. So here I've got them in ascending order. Just for the year, publication psych info for each year of the 8 subdomains of positive psychology for only the year 2008, 2009. And there's the resilience with the nearly 1,600. And so I've got them arranged in descending order. That's only for 1 year, by the way. Is this a prognostic indicator of the future of positive psychology? Now, Todd's a big fan of complexity, and so I started thinking it's probably a little more complex than this. Resilience researchers, some of them are interested in happiness too. Resilience researchers, some of them are interested in life satisfaction, or vice versa. If you consider yourself to be a happiness researcher, you might be interested in resilience. All right, so I combine them. The next chart, or the next figure, looks at the subdomain within the area of resilience that is also concurrently interested in simultaneously studying happiness in relation to resilience. So we're going to see this co-occurrence. I also, in the next graph, will show you, the subdomain within resilience that combines simultaneously resilience with life satisfaction, combines simultaneously resilience with character, strengths, and virtues. So how does it play out? Because I'm thinking maybe resilience research has the capacity to synthesize or integrate the other subdomains, the cross-fertilization of these subdomains. Okay, so let's start off with this. We just saw this on the far left, right? This 1587. So there it is again. And I want to contrast that to the next figure, figure 6. So here's the figure 6, the number of publications within 4 subdomains of resilient scholarship. This is just for 1 year. The 1,600 in the year 2008, 2009. Of those 1,600, 86 of the 1,600 that study resilience also study happiness. 71 of the 1,600 resilience papers are also studied meaning and purpose simultaneously. So you see how it shakes down, and only 15 of the 1,600 resilience papers simultaneously study character strengths and virtues in the 1 year, 2008, 2009. This is only 5%, by the way. The biggest one right here, that's only 5%. So that leaves 95% of the resilience research unaccounted for in terms of integration, at least with these factors that I looked at. I don't know what implications this has for the future of positive psychology, but let's take a look at a trend over time, because then we can extrapolate into the future. This is just a 1 year snapshot, right? All right. Figure 7, number of publications within 4 sub-areas of resilient scholarship for the last 20 years. I'll let you just look at that and see if it makes sense to you. Couple of things I'd like to just bring to your attention. First of all, the resilience has not really been integrated well with the character and strengths and virtues research at all for the last 20 years. A little bit of a blip in 04, 05, and then a little bit of an upturn in the last 4 years. Now, is this line going to increase in the future? Ryan Niemiec would say, yes, probably. I don't know what Ryan would say. Ooh. Just wait a couple minutes. We'll hear from him himself. But you can see here, there hasn't been much integration. The biggest integration has been in the area of happiness. And look at that. That's pretty robust. Is that line going to continue in the next 5, 10, 15 years? Greater cross-fertilization between resilience research and happiness? I'm seeing a lot more papers in the area of cancer care, where people are looking at resilience in end-stage cancer care. These are nursing journals, and they're actually looking at happiness in people who are dying of end-stage cancer. That's not at all Pollyanna Disney World positive psychology. We're integrating, as Dr. Wong is advocating, a more balanced, integrated, inclusive, and I would say more humane positive psychology, where we're actually not ignoring people who are suffering, but applying a positive psychology model to the many factions in society who are suffering. And I think that's the virtue of resilience research. By definition, resilience research is more inclusive, is more humane, doesn't ignore the underdogs. This actually, everybody's been talking about their movies and TV shows they've been seeing. Anybody see that Anthony Robbins, what is it called, Breakthrough? His first episode was last Tuesday. It's a new TV show, one of these reality shows. Everybody knows Tony Robbins, right? Self-help guru. Did anybody here see Breakthrough, the first episode? It was incredible. He's working with a couple. They got married a year prior to the episode, and the husband, on the day of the wedding, at the wedding ceremony, had an accident in which he broke his neck and is for the rest of his life going to be in a wheelchair, and has been. And that was the happiest day of their life, transformed into the single worst day of anybody's life. So the bride became a nurse, and he became an invalid. And so Anthony Robbins actually worked with him and did a bunch of positive psychology interventions, one of them including skydiving. This fellow in the wheelchair. A whole bunch of really interesting things. And there was some transformation that I saw going on. And it was some positive psychology intervention. It wasn't framed that way. He's also on Larry King. The couple and Anthony Robbins was on Larry King Live like a week later. And I got to see a little bit of that interview. So if you have a chance, take a look. I mean, it's a great example of how positive psychology is being applied in non-traditional areas that have been neglected and underserviced in the area of positive psychology. So I think in the future, if this trend goes up, we can accuse positive psychology less and less in the future of being Pollyanna, Disney World in its orientation. Okay, and this is the last slide, and I'm passing it over to the panel, starting with Todd. Number of publications within 3 sub-areas of resilience scholarship. This is Tier 2 research, the Tier 2 research. So resilience and flourishing, of the 1,600 publications on resilience in 2008, 2009, only 10 of them looked at flourishing. Of the 1,600 in the year 2009, only 1 of them looked at life worth living, and none of them looked at the good life in relation to resilience. So these are areas of potential integration for the future. All right, so with that, I'm going to try to engage the audience, starting off with the panel.
10 years ago, we have the first positive psychology symposium here. Do you know who were the participants? Rick Schneider, Edward Chan, Howard Tanner, Crystal Park. Your teacher, right? Your teacher, Crystal Park? Okay. So we have, but our conference never got any attention from Pennsylvania. We're doing the CIS, okay? We've been doing positive psychology for 10 years here. I've been inviting Silverman many times, and he never show up. And Howard Gardner show up, George Williams show up, Michael Novak show up. A lot of famous people show up here. So if we can get Martin Silverman to the conference, I'll be very happy. Okay, so I try very hard to get him here so we can have a debate or discussion. So let me show you what I have presented. My young friend come in. Just quickly to show you how we have touched everything that we discussed here. Okay. Quick. Now, about your comment about research, about I think sometimes we can hinder research by got locked into an instrument. Possible, right? For example, on speciality, VIA, the thing on spirituality, is really doesn't do justice to the wealth of research on spirituality. So what I'm saying is that let's do not be locked into a particular instrument if that is it. Because as he's correct, the validity of any instrument is based on research, constant validity, based on research. So you say, oh, we don't know research anymore. We got instrument spirituality. That's VIA. But that will be really prohibited. Similarly, on mindfulness. If we interpret mindfulness purely in terms of the character strengths, we again prohibit research. So based on the work of Dan Siegel and some other famous people on mindfulness, so actually mindfulness can be operationalized in 5 components. It's called ocean. Openness to experience. Openness. E. O. C. Compassion. Have kindness towards other fellow beings. Compassion. Ocean. O. C. E. E. Empathy. A. Attention. Attention. Focusing on what's happening to you moment to moment. And N. Non-judgmental. Without judgment, observing what's happening to you, right? But if we try to lock in mindfulness in terms of VIA categories, then you will limit research, right? So let's be open-minded and do research on a construct, okay? And then try to improve VIA instrument or any instrument, okay? So that's don't lock in. Are you ready? Hurry, next one, come, hurry. Oh, hurry, next one. Okay, now that's been shipped very interestingly. That's been shipped in pop psychology. In the beginning, they say, oh, my pants went off. I have lost weight after cancer. I lost weight, okay? So it's a bit loose, okay? But I'll be careful holding on to it. Well, so this is shift in pop psychology. At first, there's too much research on pathology. We got to pursue psychology with equal vigor, right? That's fair enough, right? But this corrective motivation, justification is not sufficient to sustain psychology, right? So I criticize psychology. Many other people criticize that. See, now they change the tune. Now they say, "Oh, psychology. Oh no, not just about happiness, but psychology is about healing the world, building the best." Silverman said that. My friend Peterson said that. They have changed the tune now because of the criticism. Okay, so give them credit. Okay, but to me, it's like lip service because when you look at this, there's no sincere attempt to say, how do we incorporate the negative part? And how to make it negative part work together to promote humanity, to improve helping. So their thinking is that, implicitly, the assumption is that all you need to do is to enhance happiness, enhance stress, and the negative will go away. So don't need to worry about incorporating, but actually, the negative holds great potential for transformation, for character strength, for happiness. Great potential. So that's why I'm trying to say. So what I'm saying is, now next slide. Now the yin yang of psychology is I'm Chinese, right? We believe in yin yang. How many people believe in yin yang? Every time we out of balance, yin yang out of balance, we develop physical problem and psychological problem. So the best way for mental health, for happiness, for joy, for better society, is to strike a balance between yin and yang, between the dark side and bright side. Okay. Now, Riff is a smart woman. That's what he said, right? The dialectics between negative and positive, right? It's dynamic, dialectic. I like her. A smart woman. She's way ahead of the guys, right? we are kind of Silverman and other people in terms of well-being understanding. I told her, I said, you are a gold standard for well-being research. She's very happy about that. Okay, next slide. Now, this is funny, you know. Parapsychology is not happyology. They keep on saying that. But in actual fact, everything is subsumed under happiness, as you mentioned. Okay? Next slide. Now, Silverman defined authentic happiness in terms of living a pleasant life, engaged life, and meaningful life. That is the sum total of the good life. The good life is happiness. Meaning is a little category, it's a little part of it. I want to flip it wrong. I said, put my finger. I said, meaning actually should be the bigger thing. Next slide. Put away. Just hurt my finger. The engaged life is also described as a good life. So the good life is a subset of the good life, so it's not logical, okay? Next slide. We propose an increase to increase the precision of term we use, okay? Okay, I say I'll grant Silverman. Okay, say okay, the good life and happy life. Okay, about the same. That's fine. But it's people are understanding. But when it comes to research and theorizing, we have to be more precise. Next term. Okay, I said the happy or happiness should be only used to denote psychological well-being or pleasantness. That's not next term. Well-being is an umbrella term, including subjective and social indicators. Okay. Next, life satisfaction. Oh no, go back. Go. Life satisfaction is a cognitive component. Okay. So all well-being skills have two components: cognitive and emotive. Okay. And next slide. Now, this guy, Hebron, is a philosopher about happiness. Very smart man. You got to read him. He said, look, you know him, Hebron? No. So he said, well, we should have, different types of well-being happiness. The first type is called psychological or hedonic well-being. That means more pleasant emotions than negative. Now, that's fair enough. The second one is interesting, potential. Potential well-being in philosophy is talk about a life well lived, a life is unfolding well, a life is going well for you. So it's an engaged life, it's a successful life, it's a productive life, okay? That's potential well-being. So that's different from eudaimonic, okay? So engaged life is not necessarily eudaimonic, okay? So that's potential, okay? And next one is a bit tricky now. So that's where we have some little discussion. Okay. My pants. Don't look. Now here's something I say. Sit down. Okay. Someone put it down. It says that the good life is best reserved for the virtuous life. So because only virtue qualifies for the descriptive good in the real sense of the word. He also argued that eudaimonia calls for a virtuous life will often entail sacrifice, therefore it's different from psychological well-being. Okay, so that's why I'm arguing and say it's not the same, You see, look, here's the thing. Every kind of well-being involves subjective well-being. That's a given, okay? That means all kinds of financial. Subjective well-being is the most basic component. Okay? But the source of well-being can be different. Okay? So feeling good from doing good, feeling good from being good, you pick up why subjective well-being, but it's different from the other kind of well-being because the source is different, right? We agree on that now? Okay, thank you. Because we have some argument over the email about whether they're different. Subjective well-being, in terms of measurement, no difference. You're right. But in terms of source, there are differences. It's clear, right? Measurement is no different. They're all becoming with subjective well-being. But it was making a distinction because our world cannot survive without virtue. Here's the gentleman who talk about ethics and virtue. Democracy cannot survive without virtue, right? There's quite a lot of problem in finances. All these guys talk about optimal functioning, happiness, success. Oh, character strength in terms of success value, but not in terms of moral value. We've got to have include the more. I say, young man, do more on virtue research, okay? And the more virtue value of character strength, not just success strength. The radical civilization will self-destruct. Self-destruct. If we do not restore a sense of virtue, and that's why we invite Michael. Nobody's here. He will give a good talk today. Democracy cannot survive without value, without moral values, with ethical principles. Next slide. Now, here I don't agree with my friend Rick. He said, oh, well, we need positive and negative, but wait until we have fully developed positive psychology, then we talk about negative. Oh, that's nonsense. Sorry, Rick. Sorry, Lopez. You know why? You cannot fully develop positive psychology without incorporating the negative. How can you start courage without negative emotional fear? How can you? How can you study the character of perseverance without bringing in frustration, disappointment, right? You can't fully understand the positive concept without being the negative. So let's separate. Don't talk about negative until we know more about positive. That's nonsense, right? Sorry about that, okay? Sorry, Rick. He's a good man, by the way. He's a smart man. He's the first one who recognized my important meaning work. Okay? And Chris Peterson, too. Okay? He's a good man. Next one. Now, here I say, well, maybe it starts with taxonomy. All science began with taxonomy, right? Chemistry take off because of the table, right? Chemical table. So all science began with taxonomy. So here I am. I offer you this. I say, well, too much positive psychology have focused on outcome measures, but let's take the whole thing. Let's start with say antecedent condition can be positive and negative. Okay, adaptive processes. Okay, can deal with both an outcome. Now, here's something. Negative antecedent condition can also be a source of well-being if you have the appropriate adaptive process, the dynamic process, acceptance, enduring, transcending, transforming. If you're able to rise above cancer, so I have cancer, right? You're able to rise above cancer, able to transcend cancer, transform it, that makes me vital, right? Because that makes you not free of death, makes you fully alive. So that whole thing, see that process called resilience process. That process is part of resilience. And what happened? The outcome. Now, the outcome from negative antecedent condition is wisdom, humility, growth, maturity, patience, faith, spiritual formation. This part of outcome is seldom studied. They are all reflecting well-being, okay? They all reflect. If you have all those outcomes, they will all score highly in superior well-being. Okay? So that is, next slide. Let me show you. Oh, here's my friend, Niemiec. Here I'm saying that a balanced approach to character trait and outcome, every trait has both positive and negative outcome. Self-confidence, the positive outcome is success, happiness. The negative outcome is arrogance, revenge, aggression, alienating of friends, disillusion. You know, my friend Peterson, EOP, not Peterson, a smart guy at EOP, he used to be at Harvard. And he studied aggression, violence. He said, you know what? The source of aggression and violence is actually something good. Because you are so confident about yourself, about your view, about your beliefs. When that will, that belief are threatened by other people, you become very defensive. And when other people become stronger than you, you want revenge. Okay? You want revenge. You want to fight back. Okay? So violence can come from character strength of confidence. So Aristotle say every virtue is a vice, right? Every virtue is a vice. So there's always negative part, positive part. Negative trait can also have positive thing, outcome, okay? And negative outcome. So that is 2 by 2, 2 by 2. So the first column, positive, positive, that's positive psychology. And also negative, positive, less. Negative, of course, bad. But negative, positive is good. And positive, negative is bad. See, positive, the limitations to the hope, the limitations to love. But these limitations are good for positive psychology because they're boundary conditions, right? So all the 4 columns need to be studied. Next slide. Although for the people from China, Japan, they're more collective. There's a growth-oriented motive for both self and others. Outcome measures. Next. Group and others. Okay? So the huge gaps in psychology because we ignore the collective orientation. Next slide. Definitely. Okay. A balanced definition. PP is concerned with the scientific study broadly defined that include quality research of what enable people.
Catching a train. So
Okay.
great stuff, though. That's what I'll thank you.
Oh, come in touch, okay?
Absolutely.
Take care, Mike.
What enables people to survive and flourish individually and collectively in sickness and health, poverty and prosperity, not just for peace and prosperity, but for every situation. People seek to bring out the good and transform the bad. Okay? The next slide. Now, here are 4 pillars of psychology: the imperative of virtue, the centrality of meaning, the necessity of resilience, and the source of well-being. So these are 4 pillars. I'm showing the beautiful chart. Show the chart up there.
The one at the end.
Show the chart. The beautiful. Okay, here's now here answer your question. Now this shows you the dynamic version of. So here is a complete chart. Here is a complete chart how you balance between building approach and managing avoidance. Okay? This is not just avoid pain and approach part of purpose. It's the trick of balancing both. Now, pure means purpose, understanding, responsible action, and enjoyment. And ABCD means acceptance. ABCD is the resilience mechanism. It is the mechanism we use to overcome negative things. Acceptance, belief, commitment, discovery, and enjoyment, and evaluation. So you have pure and ABCD. So you can see positive and negative, they all interact. And then overall, you have mindful awareness, ocean. Yeah. When you have low time, when you have neutral time, you be mindful, of what's going on. And then you have culture, personality. So that's the whole picture. So I have no time to explain that. So better cut short. Okay. We still have 10 minutes for questions.
I think the session was over 5 minutes ago.
Oh, is that right? I thought 12:30. Oh, sorry. Oh. Oh, thank you for coming. So we,